ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So in this video I want to provide some maintenance tips for the peristaltic dosing pumps that I use from GHL, specifically the GHL Doser 2.1 and the Doser 2.2 Maxi Doser. Let's kick it off with some tips on Maxi Doser maintenance. So the one other thing I want to mention is that this maintenance routine can also be used on the older version of the Maxi Doser that GHL had, the one that was discontinued a while ago and was replaced by this one. So anyway, with that, let's get into this. So the first thing you want to do for each dosing head is just slide off the cover. Comes off real easy. Then you're going to want to disassemble the unit. So this plate pops right off, right there. Then you can remove this plate down on the bottom, which holds the tubing in place. Got a couple of grooves in there. Remove that. So this will allow you to pop out the silicone tubing, which comes out rather easily. Then you can just kind of take off each of these rollers. And then finally this inside plate will come off. And so what I do is I just kind of look for any dust, debris, anything else that might be a cause for concern in terms of interrupting the performance of this thing. I'll just kind of go in there and wipe off the metal, I guess you call that, axle on the dosing head, and just inspect it some more. But really the main thing here is that you want to reapply the silicone that's on the peristaltic dosing head pump. So, you know, GHL says you can use a temperature resistant and food safe silicone paste. Then, you know, that's preferred for lubrication, but you can also use Vaseline as an alternative. So that's what I got here, petroleum jelly. So the first thing I'm going to do is go in there, and you want to put a, you don't want to put too much on, but you don't want to put too little on. So I'm just going to kind of dab a little on my finger and just run it on the inside here. Make sure there's enough in there. Then also at the base of this little pin in here. So just make sure that's all lubricated. Then going to do some lubrication on the parts that I just removed. So for each of these parts, again, I'm just going to kind of inspect for dirt and dust and wipe away what I see there. You know, it's just, I don't see much. I mean, that's the great thing about, you know, one thing I could say about this dosing pump is that, you know, I've been running it hard for 3 months and really don't see a lot of wear and tear. I mean, the rollers are in really good shape. I'm just going to kind of wipe. I see a little piece of hair on that one. Just going to kind of wipe them down a little bit, and you know, do the same for this part as well. Just to make sure there's no dirt, but really there's not a lot of cleaning that needs to be done in this thing. So then it's just a matter of reapplying, you know, some of that that lubricant. So you're going to want to do that on this piece right here. Again, not too much lubricant. That's probably a little bit too much that I put on there. You know, just kind of get into the nooks and crannies on that, and you want to also do these little holders for the rollers. Just make sure that those are lubricated as well. So just kind of get in there, and with that thin layer of Vaseline, just make sure that's all lubricated up. And then you're going to also want to make sure that you put a little lubrication on the top of these rollers. Right here. And you know, that's it. You know, this piece doesn't really need to get the lubrication, but Put a little on anyway, what the heck, right? Can't hurt. Just a thin layer of lubrication on that piece as well. So, all right, now I'm going to reassemble. So the last thing I want to do before I do reassemble is inspect that silicone tube, just again to make sure there's no dust or debris on that thing. I'm just going to kind of wipe it clean, and I'm going to reapply a thin layer of Vaseline on the tube right here. So that should be all good to go. And then it's just a matter of putting all the parts back together like this. Well, actually, probably want to put this piece on first. And the rollers go on. And the faceplate, and there's a little groove in this piece and this faceplate to accommodate the right angle for the pin. All right, so that's all in where there should be. And now I'm going to just put the silicone tubing in here and just hold both of these into these grooves. Just kind of massage it in there like that. Put this piece in. It's going to hold the tubing in place. Faceplate. Make sure you line that up correctly. There you go. That is pretty darn simple. All right, moving on to maintenance for the Doser 2.1. And quick thing here, what you're looking at is a Doser 2.1, but there is a new Doser 2.2 that GHL sells. It has an updated Wi-Fi chip, so it gives you the same connectivity options as the updated firmware in the Profilux 4 and the Mitras LX7 fixtures. So other than that, really the features are pretty much the same. So let's get into the maintenance for the Doser 2.1 and the Doser 2.2. I do my major maintenance routine every 3 months, but it does matter in terms of how often the peristaltic dosing pump heads are used. So if you're dosing like 5 mLs per day, you're not going to have to do as much maintenance on it in terms of frequency as often as, let's say, if you're dosing 100 to 150 mLs per day. So I just want to make that clear. Really, so the other thing that I do though on a weekly basis is I will inspect each of these dosing pump heads just to make sure there's you know, that they're working. So I'll manually run them just to make sure the rollers are operating the way they should be, the pump is dosing what it should be dosing. I'll check to see if there's any cracks in that cover. So yeah, I'll do that every week. But really the first step is, in terms of the maintenance, is taking the covers off. Use this screwdriver right here. And you got to be careful about these screws. They have a tendency to kind of fall off and end up in a spot that's kind of tough to find. So be careful when you're removing these screws here. Oops. There we go. Take the screws off. Cover comes off. Again, kind of inspect the cover to make sure there's no cracks or damage in the cover. Even you know, take a little cloth and clean it out if there's any dust and debris inside there. Then what you're going to want to do is take off the heads, the little rollers. Just pull them out one at a time. This piece comes off as well. So I take that all that out, and I'll also inspect the silicone tubing. The silicone tubing is a part that sometimes, not too often, needs to be replaced. Again, it depends on how often it's being used and the wear and tear. But you know, I did have a situation once where I was using a dosing head very, very frequently, and it was dosing a lot of liquids, and the pumps just kind of stopped working, and it had just a micro, I don't know, fissure in it, and I needed to replace the silicone tubing, and that fixed the problem. So you always have to be aware of these, and always suggest having some spare silicone tubes on hand, as well as these rollers and what have you, and even the cap. So there are replacement parts for all of this stuff. There's a GHL Doser maintenance kit as well as a separate silicone tubing. I'll leave again links in the video description below for all this stuff that you can pick up if you need it. So really the first thing I'll do is I clean my dosing pump heads with acetone. You could also use a Q-tip. I use a cloth and acetone, so I'll clean off the shaft and other areas inside of the pump head. I'll clean off the silicone tubing with the acetone. But yeah, you could also use a Q-tip and alcohol. You don't want to put too much of the acetone and soak that silicone tubing with the acetone, just enough to get the dirt and the grime off. So you just kind of give that a good cleaning. And next you want to inspect the rollers and clean them. So again, I use the acetone on a cloth to clean these rollers, and you just kind of get it in there really good, roll it around, clean them off until you get all the dirt and the grime off of there in each one. And once that's done, ready to put them back into place. I put the silicone tubing in, get that in place there, put this piece in, get one of the rollers in there, just kind of rotate it, get the next one in, rotate that, final piece. Then you're going to want to put the cover back on, get the screws in there. Again, you don't want to lose those screws. I've had many instances where I've been on my hands and knees looking for these suckers. Sometimes it could be like finding a needle in a haystack, let me tell you. So you screw that back in there, and you know, again, I will make sure that the rollers are working the way they should be. So the other key, once you're done with that maintenance for the pump head, you want to do a recalibration. So you could use a GHL Connect app to do that, but it's very important to recalibrate to make sure you're dosing the amounts that you want to dose. So that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you folks watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Until next time, be safe and be well. Later.